All right, fellas. Well, welcome to our first ever Fireside chat to discuss business during and after the COVID pandemic. Um, if you don't mind, you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves, starting with Rich.
Hi, Richard Luna, CEO of Protected Harbor. We're a managed service provider specializing in desktop and data centers. We go from Rhode Island to Florida and all points in between. And we're 7 by 24. The key to our success is a flat rate, unlimited service support model and really understanding our clients, meaning you're not just a number. We do the deep dive and understand what is really important and then design a customized solution for you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Gary Caton, CEO of Gain Communications. We've been a telecommunications service provider on a national basis for over 30 years. Our clients range in multiple sizes, anywhere from the 5-person office up to 10,000 stations. Our claim to fame has been all of our business has come to us based on a referral from other satisfied clients. We as well are 24 by 7 and always considering the client's best interest at heart. And we've built a very successful business over the 30 plus years that we've been providing those services.
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Vertolli. I'm the president, CEO, ComTec Systems. We have 3 major divisions, Unified Solutions. We have a cloud services division and a consulting division. We're a national player providing technology support, either cost savings or cost efficiency type services, offering it to downstream providers like Protected Harbor and Gary Caton with Gain Communications. ComTech's specialty is similar to that of Gain's. We're very hands-on, we're very client-centric, and we can provide overlay of applications and services to help support their client base.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, let's get right into it. Rich, I'm going to throw this to you. Talk about your business and how your clients were impacted in the short term. What role did you play in their transition?
Well, the biggest thing to understand, the biggest impact that we had was several-fold. One was techs, the on-site techs had a concern about going on site because we're in COVID Central. We're in the center of where everything is occurring. So I simultaneously had to work with our executive team to design a plan to take care of the clients because we are an essential service and respect and handle the tech's concerns and respond to what the needs are. From the client viewpoint, it was to understand the level of fear that was occurring, both because their businesses were being impacted, and design a series of services to help alleviate that fear. So what we did was, for example, we're big. A core value of ours is whatever technology we use, we host internally. So when Zoom started to have a lot of problems, we spun up our own video service and sent it out to our customers free of charge. And a number of them have really been happy about that. When we then saw an increase in attacks on clients, there's a substantial increase since people have been working from home on server attacks and RDP attacks. What we then did was send out an email to our clients, tell us what employees you're furloughing or laying off so that we can disable those logins, and then we're enabling dual factor authentication and we're doing it free of charge during the pandemic. The purpose of that is to really understand what will help the client. And so things we've done is constantly communicate every week, sending out tips or notices of what we're seeing with ideas as to how we can help. And that has really solidified our relationship. I mean, in this environment, the best thing you can do as a vendor is to take care of your client and understand all the pressures that they're experiencing and under. In terms of the techs, it was get gloves, get masks, understand their concern, work with the client, and where we could postpone a visit, we postponed a visit, and where needed, we sent a tech, but never, if they ever felt that they were not safe, they were completely allowed to leave. You know, the techs are a valuable part of our organization, and that was really important to us as a business.
Nice. That's great.
Same question to Gary and Mike.
Sure. We have very similar situations as does Rich in that we have field service techs as well. In many instances, we were able to actually convert those clients that did not have remote access in a scramble mode as this pandemic hit everyone in our area at the same time. People had to gear up, get their people in line, get their voice communications in line, working from home with a myriad of different ISPs, whether it be the Fios or the cable modems, you know, and as the impact of everyone working remotely, including distance learning from children that are using Xboxes, it has really taken its toll on the residential grade ISPs across our area. So we had some challenges that we had to work through on an emergent basis for many, many of our clients. At the same time, we dealt with larger clients that we share with ComTec as well, one of which has over 1,200 direct numbers and almost 100 toll-free numbers who are considered a critical care healthcare provider. And when their building shut down in New York City, which is the epicenter of the pandemic, it was a scramble to get everyone in their call center to be able to answer calls remotely on their mobile devices and their soft phones and things of that nature, while still maintaining the compliance perspective of having to record their calls because they are medical in nature and they have to have proof of that call and what actually transpired on that call. My technicians, both inside and outside of the office, have been very, very cooperative. Of course, they are scared like everyone else is. And we had a challenge of actually being able to provide PPE to be sufficient for them to go on site. Many of our local medical centers are still having that challenge today in getting the PPE required for their frontline workers. Our folks really reacted quickly. They worked 24/7. Literally around the clock for the first 2 weeks in making sure that the clients were receiving their calls, particularly those in the medical industry, which take up about 40% of our client base. So between those and the banks that had closed and our day-to-day, you know, frontline workers, transportation, manufacturing, things of that nature, we really reacted very, very quickly. And the challenge is really going to be, how do those clients in the future, are they going to come back to the office? Are they going to continue to work remotely? And how quickly can we react once our state reopens? And that applies for New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, because those are the most impacted. And fortunately or unfortunately, that is where more than 80% of our clients are based out of. So we'll have our challenges ahead of us as we did when we had to transition them to be 100% remote. But I am confident with the teams that we've built between ComTec Services and Protected Harbor Services that we'll be able to accomplish that very, very well, because we've learned the hard way on how to get everybody remotely.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. So ours was a little different than Richard and Gary's. So we are somewhat in the epicenter, but we've had to operate since the day we started in the event, assuming there's a pandemic and assuming we've had natural disasters. So, you know, when you're a carrier and you're handling a lot of mission critical applications, higher level clients, and you're the one delivering the services, part of our contingency plans, both internal and external, we're assuming we would be faced with this. So, you know, in order to do business, let's say with banking and healthcare, pandemic plans and escalation plans are a requirement. So we had them in place. We assumed this would eventually take place, whether it was natural disaster or a pandemic. We practice it, we exercise it, and when this happened, nothing actually changed on our end. So it's actually a completely different model. In order to start that, we started internal with our team. So our whole company works off of KPIs. So we have key performance indicators across all personnel, which really allows us to hire and manage people in remote offices and allow them to operate independently from home. And we can measure their productivity by certain aspects of their job description. So we were always remote. We were always using collaboration tools here. And, our whole product set here is based on educating consumers and businesses on how to use better tools so that they can operate in a similar manner. So our relationship with Protected Harbor and Gain really strengthened through this as the applications and products that we have were a perfect fit for their client base and really just educating the consumers on the businesses on all the possibilities. It's really going to help them grow their organizations in the future. And we assume that this is not the first time that we're going to run into this.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear the different perspectives. I'll throw this out to all you guys. Just what long-term impact do you anticipate for your clients and how they operate? Like, do you think they're going to go completely back to how it was in January, or do you anticipate it changing at all?
Oh, I think it's a new world, and whether going back, you've got to build trust back in the environment. So if you're going to go to a restaurant and sit next to somebody, you've got to get over the fear of, are you safe or not? And that's going to take, people are people. It's going to take some time. And so I think we'll go back to something different than what we've got, but there's going to be a percentage of the workforce that works remote. And the tricky part, and it sounds like Mike's got a real jump on it, is getting procedures and processes in place to make sure that employees are being productive and that they're serving the right model. I know we've had clients ask to do screen recordings and of desktops, etc. And it's easy to want to instill the old model where you're watching somebody on top of the new technology, but I think it's more effective to hold informational meetings where people have to report what they're working on as a way to get the cohesion in an organization. And I think it's a lot harder. And I think that balance is going to constantly change over the next year or 2 years as we figure out what the new normal is.
Yep. I think in addition to that, Rich, I think what some of us are anticipating, because we have projects that have stopped for the last 76 days. We've got construction projects in New York City, Rockland County, that have just completely ceased. Construction is completely closed down. And now we're seeing that backlog. I think what the impact is going to be once we are able to get into those offices is really going to be more of 100-fold. Clients and prospective clients that I'm talking to as early as last week and this week have to now redesign their internal office environment to be able to accommodate the social distancing, whether they're going to do a redesign, which means redesigning their furniture, redesigning their common workspaces, recabling their offices to be able to support and maintain the safe distance for their employees is going to be critical to them. The other trade-off is, do we allow certain people to work from home and keep every other desk or cubicle vacant? Do we add more or larger conference rooms and things of that nature? These are the type of discussions that we're starting to have today, because there is going to be an impact with construction schedules. So that as people need to make these physical changes to their offices, we're going to need to be ready to accommodate those changes. And like Rich is saying, it is, you turn on the news, you turn on CNN, everything changes from day to day. We don't know if there is going to be a second wave. Unfortunately, as Rich mentioned, we are in the epicenter. Whether we're in New York City or we're in Bergen County or Rockland County, this is where the majority of the cases nationwide are occurring. So as the governors start to open up and ease the restrictions, we can be pretty well assured that we're going to see somewhat of an impact, and we need to stand ready for our clients in being able to react to that impact while continuing to maintain them as we are today. as people become, quote, unfurloughed and people come back into the workforce, as I'm sure Rich can attest, we've had many client users that have been furloughed, and those credentials have been taken away during this time period. And as they start to come back in, we're going to have just as much work. I mean, we've got the infrastructure pretty much in place, but now we're going to have that workload of bringing them back into the workforce, bringing them in from our perspective into the call queues and ACD queues and such, and now monitoring and reporting on those people to base their and double check their performance as they were working remotely. So that's going to be our next challenge, and we try and deliver those challenges to the clients so they know what to expect, so that it has less of an impact on our workload as well.
Nice. Yeah, I guess from our end, we're talking right now about how do we see things changing after the pandemic and the restrictions. So I think it's going to be eye-opening for a lot of business owners. I like people are creatures of habit. You know, a lot of people who own businesses have owned them for, look at this, the survey here. We've all owned our businesses 20, 30 years. And we tend to do things as we have done it before, or maybe it has how our counterparts have done it or our parents have done it. But the world's changed. And I think cloud was something people talked about, didn't really understand the full capabilities. And what it did for businesses is exactly what we experienced during this pandemic, is that you can access things remotely, but you can be fully functional if you completely embrace the cloud. So embracing remote desktop, embracing cloud-based applications, embracing outside professional companies to help manage your applications. And all of a sudden you go as a business owner, you take a big step away and you said, why did I actually invest in real estate? You know, I run an office here pretty large, and I go, in the course of a month, there's many times I never see a department. So the question became, why did I have them come in when they actually came into a building to access everything that existed outside this building, right? So it created less productive time for the employees of drive time, more of a liability, more overhead for the organization. I think what you're going to see is a lot of business owners start embracing this and start looking at it from a return on their investment. You're going to have access to more capable personnel. You're going to have better talent pools out there, letting people have flexibility. The whole model of we work 8 to 5 might go away. You might say, how about we hire people that become productive in a given job duty? I'm seeing from watching our statistics that very often people will log in very early in the morning, work on weekends, and be unproductive, you know, maybe 10 to 12, and they're taking a job. So you're actually going to start talking about people as a spoke in the wheel to get something done with the organization. And you're going to have, with indicators and good job descriptions and performance indicators, you're going to be able to hire talented people, give them a lot more flexibility, and they're going to have a lot more opportunity to work from home in remote places. That's where we see it, you know, in the areas that they do have to come in. You know, I think like Gary said, you're going to see a whole different environment, even within an office. We use different Teams applications, our Cisco, our WebEx solution. You know, even internally, when we used to have physical meetings, we'd say, hey, can you come to my office? And 3 people would join. We literally, from within the office, just join virtual meetings. We do virtual screen shares, although we're 20 feet apart. It's more efficient, it's more productive, it's safer, it's better collaboration. We have a recorded session of what we did. So they're the type of tools that are going to be out there. I think they'll be embraced. The companies that survive this, I think, are going to start saying, what did we learn from it? They're going to find that they didn't need all the employees that maybe they had, or maybe they're actually going to find that there's applications that they could embrace moving forward. Maybe there'll be a combination of what they, how they worked during the COVID and how they worked once we ease up the restrictions.
You know, Mike, I had 3 reactions to what you just said. You hit a button that it brought up a couple things. I've got 2 clients that literally told us we're not going back to our office. Mm-hmm. That they're smaller in size. They don't know why they have an office. Their server is here. Their fear was they were used to operating the way they were operating in an office, and they're an office of 9 people. There's no reason that they go back. They feel that they're better off working remotely. They don't need to physically go to an office, and they're actually in talks to cancel their lease and to neighbor. and to never go back. Second is, you mentioned working 24 hours or splitting the work. We've seen that. We've seen the off hours activity increase to the point that we know some medical practices that we manage, they're sending more of their billing activity that used to be done locally is now overseas, and they're busy during the middle of the night. And the last thing was about meeting. The virtual meetings are awesome. They're great, especially when you're doing training, because one of the things we've done with the downtime is do internal training where a lead tech will do a demo or go into how we can improve our service or just a knowledge transfer. Now we're recording those,
Right.
so that the other staff in the future can review and play.
Right.
We're not looking at it as a direct replacement to meetings. It's augmenting. There's something chemistry-wise that happens when everybody gets together in a collaborative environment, and a WebEx or a Zoom or Big Blue Button, it's another dynamic of it. So
Right.
I'm hoping we go back to some level of communication so we don't lose that, but definitely there are a lot of advantages to the what's going on now. And, it's just another tool.
Yes.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, you're talking about, though, and especially with collaboration and such, when you've got so many people working remotely, and because we are a very reactive company, a client calls in a request, or they've got an immediate need, or they've got a location that's in trouble, their carrier is down, their power goes out in their building, what have you, we need to immediately react, and that's been our claim to fame over the past 30 plus years. Normally, when you're physically in an office and you've got your customer service group and they've got an escalation, or a major carrier has an outage out in Pennsylvania somewhere, or what have you, you've got that interaction, and people hear each other on the phone because their cubicles are close to one another, and they see the volume of the calls typically coming in. When you're working remotely, you don't have that capability. You don't know what's going on at the other person's home who's your counterpart who's also answering calls. Maybe you see those calls coming in and you see the volume getting larger, but you don't really know if they're experiencing the same thing to another customer. So what we have found invaluable are the group chats. The confidential, HIPAA compliant group chats. I use it myself. I'm working remotely as well. And if I need to take a 10-minute break and go walk the dog, I put out a group chat, this video call that we're having now. People can see what I'm doing, but oftentimes they'll just go ahead and click a button and call me. So I'll actually send out a group chat saying, hey, guys, don't bother me from 11 to 12 because I'll be on a video chat. People respond immediately, whether they're sitting at the desk or they're using their smartphone and they're getting that chat through one of our applications. It becomes very, very valuable. So I think that will continue, whether you're in the office or outside of the office.
I think all of us see the power in video chats because we all have it on our different platforms and working together as well.
Just, one thing to take it past video chat, and I think the video side is what we use and people are focused on, but it's really a lot more. I think we're talking about collaboration. So what we're talking about is creating an interface to allow, whether it's chat or voicemail or, presence where you can see what other people are doing, recording calls, web sessions, really creating a tool, an electronic tool that allows all forms of communication to take place. So I'll give you like a few examples of things that we've seen take a major change. So and probably all can relate to them. So I used to go to my attorney and I'd say, hey, I have a document. I'd send it over. He'd mark it up. I don't know when he got it, how he was doing it. And then he'd give me comments, he'd build me 4 hours. Now I say, hey, I have a document. Can you jump on board? We do a screen share. So there's the collaboration. He's saying, let me look through it. I'm doing live edits with him. Enter 20 minutes. That would have been 2 hours. That would have been a $600 bill that I got billed, $100 for. Then my accountant jumps on. We're on QuickBooks. And I'm like, we can't balance this thing out. And he's like, all right, well, we're going to send Brian out there next week. I'm like, how about we just jump on right now? And he's like, okay. I sent him a link. He's in 2 seconds. right?
Yeah.
So it was very quick, very fast. My doctor, I had poison ivy. In the past, they'd say, well, come in. I'm like, so I expose everybody to the office. I sit in a waiting room for 2 hours. He comes in and goes, wow, you're really good. It really is poison ivy. As if I didn't know it.
Yeah,
Then I have to
but you didn't say about taking your pants down in front of
yeah.
your video camera.
Yeah, I didn't have to do that. But the crazy thing is, it's all common sense things now. So he says, okay, great. Let me look at it. Show the video. Yes, I called it in electronically. I got a response from the pharmacy. It's ready in 20 minutes. I make one drive to pick it up and I'm done. That was a 3-hour displacement of my life. It was inconvenient. It was for a medical office that has really high level things to deal with, just doing general prescriptions because they have no access. So as they start easing the restrictions and they start allowing different verticals to start embracing it, I think we don't need more healthcare. What we need is to be more efficient in how we handle healthcare, right? Things like that. So like, these type of mediums are going to allow us to be more productive with the same amount of people.
Right. And to tag on to that too, Mike, one thing that I noticed just the other week when I was talking to you about it, I was going to send an email to one of your sales engineers, and all of a sudden in my Outlook, and we're not on the same servers, Rich is managing our Outlook server in his data center. I'll look up and I'll see the gentleman's name who I'm about to email has a green square next to his name. So what the heck is this?
Yeah.
It's a present status showing me that he's available.
Right.
Or if it's red, I know he's not available, or brown, that he's in a meeting, and this is something just via email. I'm not going from application to application to application to learn about it. And we are, in essence, two separate entities, in two separate parts of the state of New Jersey.
Right.
So we're collaborating, even though we don't even realize we're collaborating at that point.
Yeah.
Well, what you're mentioning is, and this is, I think, a hallmark of all three of our organizations is this is a horrific event, but that's also forcing us to look at our model and forcing our clients to look at their model and figuring out how to do the task differently. I mean, that's the overall message.
Yep.
But following our own mutual core values of taking care of the customer, which allowed us in the middle of this to refer a client to you guys and have them on board, and the client is thrilled, all because we're looking at our models differently. Nobody had to actually visit or go out on site. It was all a virtual handoff and onboard, and that's the future.
Right. And as things developed, Rich, and that customer came on board within, what was it, Brian? I think 4 days. Yeah. From initial point of contact to getting them live in the middle of a major pandemic. And they were also part of the epicenter, and from what we hear, they absolutely love the solution. But again, it's a team effort. It's not just the IT company. It's not the voice consultant or project people. It's not the ComTec, the back end with the deployment and the voice application and connectivity. It's working cohesively as a group. And I think what we're going to see are the smaller IT companies, the smaller of the carriers, the smaller of the telecom folks. When we go out and we look at an opportunity, I was out on one that's halfway between Gain and ComTec. And we were up against two major, well-branded, big logo names for a pension fund. And they're a decent-sized firm, again, in between Michael's office and my office. And when I went down and I met with them, I said, well, who else has surveyed your office? Who else has done a physical site survey and checked out your network and checked out your infrastructure and checked out your cabling? And they said, absolutely none of the other two competitors. They refused to come down. I said, well, how are they going to do the install? And that is the reason why they're signing with us. Yep. And now they're looking for a quick implementation during the pandemic because they need our services. They need to be up and operational. They're on a legacy system. They've got 1/10 of their people in the office, and the other 90% of their people have the calls forwarded to cell with no connectivity. So they are literally crippled at this point. So we're going to fast track it for them. Much larger client than the one in Rhode Island, Rich, but if they didn't have 120 direct inward dial numbers, we'd probably be able to bring them up on board just as quickly. But we've got to port out their numbers.
My point is that in the past, there would have been a lot more dialogue I mean, one of the wonderful things about the three of us is we share the same core values on taking care of the customer, to the point that our tickets and support are integrated. But it's because of that we can do best of breed and do
Exactly.
the handoff and know that that's all going to happen the right way.
Right. Agreed.
So I got one last question for you guys as we wrap up here, which is, for anyone watching this, what types of questions should they be asking themselves? What should they be considering as they plan for the future?
I can jump in on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
No.
Well, the first thing is, how are you going to handle the future, and are you ready to handle the future? Are all of your people going to come back to work? Some of the lower end wage earners now have a $600 a month bonus to stay on unemployment from the federal government. Your lower cost admin people, they may be making more money staying at home than coming back to work. So that's the first challenge. Who are you going to keep? So you need to consider that. And I think most importantly, because as I can attest, my employees are my biggest asset. They're the ones that keep the customer happy. They're the ones that are customer facing. They're the ones that are going to bend over and do whatever they need to do for that customer just by the customer asking. So first and foremost, we need to protect our employees. As the customers feel that they've got to protect their employees, they've got to figure out where the heck are they going to put them, because now you've only got a 50% occupancy rate. Do we expand our office? Do we take more space? Do we have people working from home? So they need, in more of a global plan, to figure out where they're going to go with their company. Are they even going to be in business? Unfortunately, some of our customers, we're not even sure they're going to open. Our favorite restaurants, or some of our healthcare clients that were going to be gobbled up by the larger medical centers and multi specialty practices. They may close down their doors and become part of a hospital system. We just don't know. It's really impacted every industry across the board. So they've got to think deep, and then once they've got an idea, even if it's a sketch of where they're going to want to be, they've got to reach out to us and let us know what their plans are, so that we can more effectively plan for their reopening and their success in the future.
I would say if I'm talking to a prospect or somebody watching this video, if your vendors are not reaching out to you and helping you through this, go get other vendors regardless.
Yeah.
You need people. This is a really hard situation. You need people with like minds who understand, want to help, and not looking to nickel and dime, but looking for how to get you across the threshold or whatever the next issue would be. There's certainly going to be issues that come up in the fall, and there's certainly going to be events that occur. But if you've got a good partnership with vendors, and you've got vendors with good partnerships with each other, you're going to have a great team to support you.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, and I guess in closing on my end, I'd say I like to look at everything in life as a lesson, and for this one, it's always been there for us. Like we've kind of in the last few generations just lived a very easy lifestyle. I think we can all agree that from our parents, our grandparents, to our parents, to us, the lifestyle has gotten easier and better and more convenient, and we haven't had a whole lot of setbacks. So we kind of took this as an anomaly, but maybe it's not. Like maybe this is a good indication that we've had it good for a really long time, and whether it's a pandemic or ecological or geological, we could have a storm. But I would say this should be eye-opening for anybody to say life does not always have to be what you've experienced in the last 15, 20 years. Like it doesn't have to be as simple. You're not maybe going to have the $50,000 cars, and we're going to be driving everywhere. I would assume that we're going to start experiencing more things like this, and maybe take it for like a great warning. The people who can take advantage of this and learn a lot from it probably can survive and do much better, in the decades to come.
One last point I just wanted to make before we wrap up is I'm really grateful to Mike and Gary and Brian for putting this together. I'm grateful to our prospects. I'm grateful to our customers to allow them to help us through this.
Thanks, Richard.
Well said, Rich. Well said.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it too.
Thanks,
Gary,
Brian, for
Mike.
putting this together.
Awesome
All right,
stuff.
everyone stay safe.